What if history is not just something we inherit, but something we actively shape? My guest, Dominique Luster, is a storyteller and an advocate dedicating to illuminating the rich narratives of the Black diaspora. With more than a decade of experience in cultural heritage and archives, she works at the intersection of history, memory, and justice. And after serving as the Teenie Harris Archivist at the Carnegie Museum of Art, Dominique founded the Luster Company in 2021 to help ensure that Black stories are not only preserved, but celebrated. Through her consulting and speaking, Dominique helps organizations uncover and share hidden histories while amplifying the voices of the Black community. Her clients have included the King Center, the J. Paul Getty Foundation, Denver Public Library, and numerous nonprofits. She is also known for her widely viewed TED Talk on the power of archives and is a sought-after keynote speaker at women's leadership conferences. Now, in this conversation, Dominique and I unpack the true power of storytelling, memory, and legacy. What begins as a discussion about archives expands into a dialogue about identity, entrepreneurship, cultural narratives, and the courage to claim and tell your story. Dominique shares how she stumbled into archival work while working at the University of Kentucky and how history is shaped by who tells the story. From oral histories with Black elders in the South to challenging the narratives we were taught in school, she explores the tension between fact, memory, and interpretation, and why critical thinking matters now more than ever. Together, the conversation moves beyond documentation into something even deeper. That dash between your birth date and the date that you pass on represents the story you live and how it will be remembered. And Dominique and I also get into an honest assessment and exploration of entrepreneurship, including the messy middle that no one wants to talk about. Dominique and I open up about doubting oneself, and for her, even doubting her own entrepreneurial identity, leaving her job, returning to traditional work, and building again with some more clarity and a whole lot of resilience. This conversation weaves together business, legacy, mindset, so many different things. But the one thing that you will leave with and you will understand by the end of this conversation is that if you do not participate in writing your story, someone else will. And that's very important during these times. With that, here's my conversation with Dominique. Dominique, it's so good to have you here on the Humble Rising podcast. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
This is going to be fun. And I have a feeling it's going to be, even when I was telling you earlier that I was watching some of your videos, and when you were sharing your work, a lot of feelings came up for me about your work, about what it means and the impact it can have on someone and a community. And so I am so excited for our conversation. Let's just start with your story. Tell us more about who you are, your background, and what led you to do the work that you're doing now.
So, fun fact, aside from what I do and where I live now, I am actually just like a girl from Kentucky.
Hey.
I'm very much from Kentucky. I come from a good sized family, and we really do like bourbon and bluegrass and basketball. Like it is true. Those are the things. And I grew up. I think in a lot of Appalachian families, particularly like from Kentucky, Appalachia, Black families in the South, Southern Christian families. There's a lot of stories and a lot of, well, I don't know if we'd call them stories per se, but there's a lot of narrativity that happens growing up at the kitchen table, at Easter, at the family cookout, at the family reunion. So and so did something, so and so did that, so and so. We know this narrativity, but we might not always identify it as storytelling, but it is. And it's this how we as people translate stories and history and culture and dynamics onto future generations. And in growing up, I never necessarily paid attention to it. But as I've gotten older, I realized that there's something really powerful in who we are as people, how we tell stories, not just that we tell stories, but how we tell them and the cadence and the rhythm and the historiography behind it. Um, and I didn't know if that was called a thing, but apparently it's called archiving work. I didn't know it was a thing that had like a job and a title and careers and professions that it is. And it's been a really incredible and exciting one for me. Just really truly coming from this very simple, humble roots, Black
Mm.
girl from Kentucky, and eventually took this love for narrativity and storytelling and became an archivist and was like, what is an archivist? I've never even heard of that word before. But that's what I do now. It's been really
Wait,
exciting.
Dominique, so let me ask you this. When did you figure out this is what you want to do in terms of just a general theme? But then also, when did you learn, oh, I'm an archivist. This is what you can do with that.
Yeah, actually, it was about at the same time. I was an undergrad at the University of Kentucky, and I remember needing a job. And I've told this story before, and I'm sure people are tired of hearing it, but it's so true. I wasn't necessarily in the place where I was like, oh, I've always wanted to do this thing, and I feel so inspired. And ever since I was a little girl, like that is just not, it's just not my story. I kind of fell into it out of necessity. I needed a job. I needed a job. And I remember it's probably giving myself away, but at the time, being a student worker on a campus job as a student undergraduate campus worker making $15 an hour was a big deal.
Mm.
And again, that probably gives away, a little bit about me, but it was a long time ago and that was a big deal. And I remember the library was hiring undergraduate students to work $15 an hour. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great.
I worked in the library too, Dominique. I worked in the library too. Loved it.
Loved it.
Like the best
It
campus
was the
job.
best campus job ever. And then I think you kind of get this rap of like, oh, it's the nerds. Or,
I was okay with that,
and
Dominique. I was okay with that.
you telling me that I get to sit here and check books in and out, and I
Yeah,
sit here
I'm good with that.
I'm good for $15 an hour. I'm good with that. And it was, but in my case, that actually turned out not to be the case. It wasn't, what I now know to be a reference job. It wasn't. It was in the archive, so it was in the back,
Mhm.
kind of like in a separate library on campus. And I didn't know what I had signed up for. I just knew that it was a library job paying this amount, and it was going to be fantastic. And it was an archives job, and it was a program they needed processing and help with their historic materials and all these things. And I really took a liking to it. I really loved working with historic documents and learning about the history of the people who wrote them. And then I realized that people write things in a certain way to preserve a certain story that they want to tell.
Mm.
And I thought, oh, how powerful is that? You can change the view of things, the vision of things, the memory, the history making of things based on how you wrote it down.
Mm.
I thought, wow, that's amazing. How do multiple communities write things down? Do
Wait,
we?
so then what are facts versus memories?
What are facts versus memories? That is why I became an archivist. That
So wait, let's talk about that more. Wait, so how do we untangle that?
that is the nature of my entire career. That is the question that I had decided to spend decades of my life trying to figure out because it's not necessarily history is a story, and it's a pretty straightforward formula that has lots of nuanced components to it, but the formula of making history is actually fairly simple. An event happens, right? Like a battle happens, right? Or um a simpler one, and I use it in the book, Brave Women at Work, or excuse me, In Relentless Pursuit, because there's two books.
Mhm.
But a child is born. That is an event that occurs, right? But the existence of this person gets corroborated by documentation from multiple sources. So the parents take photos, grandma takes photos and calls Aunt so and so. Oh, the baby's here. The hospital creates a birth certificate. So security gets notified. So a lot of people are involved in creating documentation. Therefore, 100 years from now, the existence of this person's depending is not in question. The existence of the person is a fact. But everything that happened between a birth date and a death date is a story. That dash in dates is a story. Everything else in the middle is up for interpretation. And it's really based on who wrote it down and what they said about it.
Hold on. What about that might blowing my mind. What about the stories you tell yourself?
Purely based on your own interpretation, positioning, and understanding of the events around you, and lack of understanding of the events around you and yourself. Purely made. It's all a story.
So okay, so what if
I
I'm
know.
I'm
I
like, no, wait,
know.
hold on.
I know.
Wait, when you tell people that,
Mhm.
do you ever get not pushback, that's too strong, but questions of, wait a minute, are you telling me that these things didn't happen the way that I think they happened?
All the time. 100,000%. And I'll give you an example of not necessarily pushback, but I would challenge any of the listeners, viewers to try it for yourself. I promise you, I'm not making this up. If you have elders in your family and you go to maybe it's a holiday dinner, it's a family reunion, a get together, Easter, doesn't matter, don't care. I would encourage you to sit two siblings together or two cousins together and ask them about an event. So I'll give you an example. Maybe your mom and your aunt both grew up in a city and they both remember the night that uh, this famous artist came to town and they went to the concert, right? You have to know what's going on. Have them tell you the story of what happened in the same room
Mm-hmm.
because I promise you they remember it differently, but they'll both claim that it was fact.
Yes. Yes. Or they maybe agree on a set of facts, but then everything else is not
Mhm.
uniform,
They will
inconsistent.
they will agree that they went to the concert. They might disagree on what year the concert was. They might disagree on who was there, what they wore, the fact that they were late. Oh, I wasn't late. Yes, you were late because it took you so long to get ready because you were on the phone with that boy. I know I wasn't talking to that boy. It becomes this thing
Yeah.
where the everything between a birth date and a death date, that dash,
Yeah.
that's the story of life. And it's not purely based, but it's strongly influenced by the stories we tell ourselves.
You know, as you were explaining that, I'm curious about what happens when people claim things didn't factually happen that someone else says actually did.
Mhm,
And if that what the root of that is. Some of it I do think some of it is survival and your brain protects you by
mhm,
not remembering. I don't know a
mhm,
lot of the neuroscience
mhm,
behind that, but I know that can happen to the body and the brain. But
mhm.
I'm wondering what else have you seen when it comes to challenging memory or like not remembering something that actually happened to you or to your family or someone close to you that was pretty traumatic.
Absolutely. Well, sometimes, at least from an archival position, what often ends up happening is that history gets changed based on this telling of said stories. So, for example, there are plenty of cases in which, if we look at old census data, especially in African American communities, or I'm sure in many communities, if you look
Hmm.
at old census data like 1930s, 1920s, 1910s, 1940s, 50s, maybe 6 people were listed in the household, 2 adults and 4
Hmm.
children. Maybe we were everyone was told that we were all siblings and parents and children. Maybe we actually weren't. But
Mm.
history gets changed because the census record said that these were the 2 parents and these were the 4 children. No one ever questions it from there on. So therefore history then becomes changed as this couple had 4 children. So when you go back in history, even though factually or biologically, and I'm not a scientist, so I don't want to overstep, but
Mm.
biologically, this information actually might not be correct.
Mm.
But that is how you remember it. These were your parents. This is where
Mhm.
you were raised. This is I have census data and driver's licenses to back it up.
Wait, so Dominic, now I'm thinking my mind just went straight to this this movement to remove archives
Mhm,
and to remove documentation and history that's part of like American history.
mhm,
And I'm wondering for you, what have you been seeing or what are your observations of what's happening and what the impact of that is to remove things that are part of our like the collective American history, but because they focus on a certain community
mhm,
or
mhm,
we're removing it. I mean, I'm not wait, that's definitely not me. But you know what I mean is that what is the impact of that when you think of as you're talking about like looking back
mhm,
hundreds of years or 100 years and the detriment to the detriment of those that are
mhm,
the next generation,
mhm.
even our generation. I mean even our generation.
I think 2 things happen. History is very long, but memory is very short, fortunately or unfortunately, and I think that history doesn't repeat itself. I think people do.
Oh.
I don't think his actually, history is a linear process. Like it's a storytelling, but time-based thing that doesn't repeat itself. We as humans, when faced with similar inputs, make the same output choices. Like
Yeah.
we repeat ourselves. History doesn't repeat itself. So from an archival perspective, I think we're trained and understand that history takes a very, very long view. History is long, memory is short.
Mm.
And so even though our history or our storytelling, our narrativity, our memory of what happens or what facts are, or, which may not be true, change, they are always changing and they have always been changing and they will most likely continue to change because history is a story.
Mhm.
And so it the storytelling narrative was changing in the 20s and in the 50s and in the 60s and in the 80s and in the 2020s and probably in the 2050s. That's just how history works is history is the thing that is being created as it's being created while also looking to the past and the future at the same time. It's a very complex thing, but in terms of archives in our current society, I think history is always being written and
Mm.
rewritten, and it was being morphed and changed in the '60s and morphed and changed in the '80s and morphed and changed in 2000. I mean, it's always being morphed and changed.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that there aren't peaks and valleys, and sometimes those peaks are really high, and sometimes those peaks are really or not as high, and maybe they're a little more stable.
Mhm.
But the encouragement that I have and the encouragement that I would share is that history requires cooperation or the absence of. Meaning, in order for something to be accepted, other people's narrative of what happened have to align. Like
Mm.
you and I have to both agree that this particular artist came to town and the concert existed. Otherwise, it's just your word. And so we have to remember that we as individual citizens have our narrative as well. And if I say, hey, that is not what happened, and I have my evidence and my corroboration that says, nope, this is the fact, this is the event, this is the law, this is the XYZ, as long as we all don't corroborate,
Mm.
history always kind of rolls. You have to take the
Mm.
long view.
Yeah, but I just think of, what I think of? I think of how history was taught when I was a child and
Hmm. Yeah.
how horrendous it was. Like just like the story of Thanksgiving and oh, it was just so lovely and fantastic. And then when you read about the Black community in your history book, it's just they were slaves and that's all that they don't talk about African kingdoms of
Yeah.
royalty.
Agreed.
And so I even think of that time in my life when I didn't know how, I didn't have another reference point. But I
Mhm.
knew this doesn't seem right. This doesn't make sense. And then I'm Dominican. And so there's nothing about like, us in here either. And I just remember just thinking to myself, that's weird. Not
Mhm.
thinking I just thought it was odd. And I said, that
Mhm.
can't be right. But then not knowing anything until maybe like even college when I really studied our
Mhm.
communities,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
In our
Mhm.
history and
Mhm.
how much we have contributed, but also continue to contribute to so much of
Mhm.
the economy in this country and the
Mhm.
world, right? But I remember back then reading these stories, quote unquote stories in these books and thinking to myself, this doesn't seem right.
And that is what we have to hold on to and trust. You have to trust that inner story, something in our own bones and spirit and something that's passed down to us usually says, "That." I remember the same thing in high school, and remember pushing back and having strong issues with it, but it is hard for me to believe that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Black communities just popped up one
Right.
day
Correct.
in 60, like, that's just not how human history works. Even as a high school student, I was like, "Humans don't just
Pop.
magically pop up." Um if anything, sometimes they can be, forcibly removed or, displaced, but
Hmm.
whole human beings don't just, like, pop up one day,
Hmm.
or they're just, like, magically discovered one day. So I think critical thinking skills,
Oh,
um
yes. You said critical thinking, and I thought, oh, AI. I just thought of how AI, can diminish your critical thinking abilities at times.
I think we have to we the actual story of what happened is so important. The actual story of history is so important. Even as an archivist, I'm going to advocate and argue that independent thought and critical thinking skills matter more. And I
Mhm.
know it's like the historian is saying that history doesn't matter, and I think it does. I just think that individual thought, critical thinking skills, analysis of the world around you, being able to read something in the news and question it, I
Mm,
think those skills matter more.
yeah. Wait, Dominic, what has been the most challenging part of your job?
Hmm. I have done some really impactful oral history work, which oral histories are essentially interviews with community members and elders where we receive their history, their life story through the written or spoken word tradition. Um, and they can be quite long, they can be quite short, but it allows the elder to write down, for lack of a better word, their history and their story in their own words, and not to challenge them or to correct them or to be like, "Oh, that's not what happened that year," but allow the elder to say their story. It's like their biography in their words, but it's an audio file. I have done some oral histories in which I've worked with a few elders who were saddened, stressed, frustrated, concerned, despondent because things that they had physically seen or physically experienced in this world as Black people in the US South. Um, and hearing them tell about their story, hearing them talking about their marches or protests that they participated in as students, hearing them talk and then is incredibly empowering. But then hearing them reflect is quite sad. It's quite heartbreaking to hear what they had to go through and to hear their perspective on um, the world and how they were treated maybe as young people in the 50s or 60s or what have you. Those are some of the hardest ones. That's some of probably the hardest work that we do. 'Cause you're looking at someone in their eye and physically watching them remember being chased by a dog or
Mhm.
being hosed or, they are replaying it and you can kinda see it in their eyes. Those are some of the hardest moments that I have probably ever worked on. And it gives you also a bit of a fight in you, and you're like, "Okay, well, that's not what we're gonna do again."
Yeah. But also the importance of of knowing those things, knowing those stories. I I wonder if you've ever worked with someone who that they wanna tell their story or they wanna share, but then it conjures up all these emotions
Mhm,
and the sadness, and then they kind of back away from it.
mhm. All the time, and I think good oral history work is also good human work. It's good people work and knowing that ebb and flow of the human spirit. I've always advocated that if you don't necessarily have to become the family historian. No, I would be, but I know other people don't find that.
Dominic, I've tried that, and people are literally, I've tried this, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard, "Oh, but my story, I mean, it's not a big deal. It's not," and I'm
Exactly.
like,
But it
I'm like,
is.
but it is, but
But I wanna know. And so, like, I always try to encourage people. I'm not saying you have to be the family historian, but I would encourage you to try and you don't even have to be fancy. Take your phone, create a voice memo or whatever app. I don't it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't need a mic or lights or any of that. You need a kitchen table while a person is cooking and ask them stories about their life. But I have heard this response of, "Oh, my story doesn't matter. Nobody wants to hear that."
Mhm, mhm.
I've hear that a lot, and here's what I will say: everyone, everyone. I particularly say this towards communities of color. Everyone has the right to be remembered,
Mm.
and well, hold on, and
No, I like that.
everyone has the right to be forgotten.
Mm. It's true, I know,
It's hard.
it's sad to say, it's sad, I get sad when you said that, but it's true. Um,
Yeah.
it's so true, even beyond, if not just thinking about the death, literally the body not
Mhm.
functioning anymore, but also I work with a lot of people who um, are executives or people who, are trying to either be better leaders or even perhaps transition out of what they're doing because they want something more aligned with their season of their life or what they really want. And they have this I'll just say it's a lie you tell yourself that, but without me in this place, it's not going to work.
Mm.
And I always tell them, listen, a month after you're gone, people don't even remember you were there because they're busy doing their thing. They're busy getting the work done. They have their own lives.
Mhm.
And you are, in that sense, forgotten in
Mhm.
many ways.
Mhm.
Maybe your impact lives on. Maybe the impact is in the people that you mentored and you sponsored and people on your team and the work. The work can live on, the legacy can live on. But you, like, no, you've left and they are then living their lives and working.
Absolutely. I actually remember being in a very similar place when I was going into entrepreneurship, and I actually wrote the Brave Women at Work book, or at least my chapter in the Brave
Wait,
Women.
Dominic, hold on. Time out. When you were going into you just zoom past that. When you were just going into entrepreneurship, can we just put a pin in that and say
Okay.
this is hard?
It
The
is very hard.
entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart, let me tell you.
It is not, and it is harder. I don't want to scare anybody, but it is harder than you think.
Oh, no, no, it's okay. We can be honest because sometimes the truth is scary and that's okay because I have been asked this question so many times and I will say it as many times as I need to say it. Being an entrepreneur, I believe, is 10 times harder than being an employee. I think it is
I
harder.
I actually slightly disagree with you. I think it's
Ooh.
about 45 times harder.
Okay. I was like, oh, tell me more.
Mhm.
It
About
is,
45
it is,
times harder.
I do think the biggest, I mean, you tell me what you think too,
Mhm.
because I'm curious. I'll just speak for myself because I don't want to speak for all entrepreneurs, but for me, my biggest challenge, especially the first 6 months to a year,
Mhm.
was mindset. You just a complete shift in how you approach the day, how you approach yourself, how you look at yourself. Every insecurity you had that you thought you have moved beyond shows up in a different form. It morphs differently and everything is
Bigger,
heightened. And yes,
bigger.
everything is bigger.
Mhm.
Yes.
Absolutely true. It is 100% mindset, and I would even go as far to say that without there are exceptions to this, so I don't wanna speak on behalf, again, of all entrepreneurs, but if you don't without that mindset, and I know you see all the YouTubes or the Instagrams or what have you, and it's like, change your mindset, read this book. I get it. But also, if you don't, that 6 to 12 to maybe 18 months, so much of the struggle that you're probably facing in your business is you.
Mm. The
With
mountain is you. Yes, it is
the
true.
without that mindset, work on yourself and on what is business. A lot of people, I think, focus on, all right, I got to get my mind right. I got to start discipline. I got to wake up at 4 a.m. and I got to do all these
Do the
things.
thing. Just do the thing. You gotta
You
do
got
the
to
thing.
just do the thing. You got to do the
Uh-huh.
thing. No, 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 no. At some point, discipline will win. Discipline is important and it's critical. But if you don't understand the philosophy of business,
Yeah.
there's gonna just you can keep getting up at 4 a.m.
Mhm.
Go ahead. But if
Mhm.
you don't understand things around profit margins and talent and people and planning for success and starting with why and
Yep.
then what and then how, if you don't
Mhm.
understand business,
Mhm. And I mean, you said start with why. I find that when it's really challenging or when I'm really unsure about something, I anchor myself in why I decided to do this, and I'm like, "Yep, let's go." Like, it just I figure it out and I move forward. But I always tell people, "Please don't become an entrepreneur when you're running away from something. You're running away from a bad situation." Maybe entrepreneurship isn't the right next step. Maybe
mhm, I
taking
agree.
some time.
I agree.
Maybe, like, take some time because if you're going in without
Mhm,
strong sense of purpose, something you're really working towards,
I agree.
you're not gonna be able to push through all of the tough challenges because there's nothing anchoring you, there's nothing pulling you forward.
It's 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 so much harder than the hard that you think it is.
Yes.
Like, and I know
Yes.
every entrepreneur on every podcast, I know we say it a lot, I know, but it's because it's true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Everything is so much harder than you think it is. And typically, it's really just you. There's no supervisor anymore to hold you to task. There's no manager all of a sudden who writes out your annual performance review anymore. Like, it's either you got that roof over your, like, you paid your rent this month and you didn't. Like,
Mm,
sometimes it really can come down to you made payroll or you didn't. You
mhm.
were able to pay your vendors this month or you didn't. Like, sometimes it really comes down to you didn't. And
Yes.
so, what are you going to do now?
And that I mean, just like the brass tacks nitty-gritty of can you pay these people, can you not? What are your accounts looking like? Are you gonna be in the
Mhm.
red? And also what I found fascinating about entrepreneurship is that sometimes the people that you think will be there for you and support you are nowhere to be found. Then the people that are sometimes the least likely you think to support you are like, yes, and you get all of these opportunities.
Absolutely. I would even take that even a step further, at least for me, I heard this quote that was saying like the people that you surround yourself, particularly your partner, spouse, whomever, that closest person, if you are an entrepreneur, you have to protect that position
Mm.
because who is around you, friends, family, and we love family, but sometimes they're not speaking in I don't know how to say it
They
nicely,
can
but
talk a lot of stuff that's not helpful.
I was like trying to find like how do you say this diplomatically? Not always are the people closest to you, are they actually gonna speak positivity into you? Are they actually gonna sit down with you and be like, "Okay, let's figure this out?" Are they actually just gonna be a positive sounding board when you can figure it out, but you need that external sounding board to bounce ideas off of? "What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" Because the wrong person will speak a certain level of negativity into a season that removes that seed from the ground before it ever has a chance to be watered.
Mhm.
Planted a seed and somebody else came and stomped all over it. Not out of spite, not out of meanness, and they maybe not even realize that they were doing it. You have to guard the space around you. I like to think that when you're a younger entrepreneur, you're in this like incubation season.
Mm.
It's like a small plant. If you're into greenery or
Yes.
planting at all, it's like a small plant, and those seedlings are very delicate. They will
Yeah.
grow into big, strong plants and trees one day, but in those early stages, they are very delicate. Too much light, too much sun, too much water, too much heat.
Mhm.
Out. And you just have to be mindful of who's around you. I would also say, this could just be me, not everybody needs to know everything.
Yes, facts. Yes, I agree. I agree to be, I like the word you used, mindful. Be just mindful of who you share things with and why.
And why not everybody needs to know everything.
No, and you know, I always find that, and I say always because I believe it's always, that your core people
Hmm.
are just, they're always going to be there. Like they are always going to be there, and you don't even tell them every single thing. But
Right.
when you're like, "Hey, I'm really struggling with this," and they show up for you, you don't have to have 10 people.
Mm-mm.
You can have 3 or 4, you could have 2, you could have 1. As long
Mm-hmm.
as you have someone that you can be honest with. Like
Mm-hmm.
sort of, yeah, it's the honesty. Like also being honest with yourself about the state of things, what is working, what is not working that you thought would work and you really wanted to work, but it's not working. How do I throw this out? Do I try to adjust? What do I,
Mm-hmm.
and then that takes time, and Dominic, you know this, it's the patience.
It
The
does.
patience, but you're doing all the work in parallel, and it's the patience and then
Yep.
the work in parallel, and you thinking, wait, I'm just trying to make this happen because I want to have this impact, but it's not happening as quote unquote fast as I would like it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things that you're taking me, I mean, I still go through a lot of that now, but I do think it's worth talking about it because I know a lot of people right now are think that the grass is greener on the other side when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I always like, I don't know if the grass is greener, it's just different. It's like a different kind of grass.
This one's one of my favorites. I hear the grass is greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it.
Hey. Yes, it's true. It's true. It is true. Yes.
The grass is greener where you water it. If you want green grass where you are, water, nurture, water, pour into yourself, read the books, listen to the podcast. I'm not necessarily saying sign up for the extra courses. I'm saying that go to the library as a
Mm.
librarian. I have to
Yeah.
say it.
It's
Go
free.
to the library. Somebody has figured this out already. Stop trying to invent the wheel.
Yeah.
Business, for the most part, is business.
Mm.
Entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship. There's so many brilliant men and women who have come before us
Yeah.
who have written their version and its history, right? Like you have to take their story from their perspective with their grain of salt. Not every business book in the world, not every book in the world will apply to you in your particular situation, but I promise you somebody has written something already
Mhm. Mhm.
about XYZ thing, and the grass is greener where you water it. I would also say, because I loved what you said about, something wasn't happening as fast as I thought it would. In my experience and in my business, only speaking for myself, it takes about 6 to 12 months for me to see a level of distinguishable change based
Yes.
on an event that I made 6 to 12 months earlier. I don't know if that makes
I
sense.
know. I'm getting used to that.
Mhm.
Like I'm getting used to giving myself a longer runway to assess whether something is working or not, right? In the
Mhm. Right,
beginning, I was like,
right,
why isn't this
right,
hitting the way that
right.
what's going on? And then now I I've locked into this frame of I'm in this for the long game. So that's I'm in this for the long game. So what does
Mhm.
that mean? That means I have to test things and I'm not going to see if they're working until maybe like 6 to 12 months, right? Or even
Right.
longer sometimes. Sometimes it's longer.
Sometimes it's longer. And sometimes, if I may, it's actually not even things that we particularly did or changed in our businesses. Sometimes it's things that did or changed in the greater economy, in
Mm,
the economic situation, in the housing market, in the job market. Like sometimes it is you.
yeah. The mountain is you.
Let's be honest.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes you have to be honest and really look at a change you made 6 or 12 months ago that maybe you forgot about, maybe that wasn't that big a deal, and you go, "Why is this not working? Oh, wait, that was me." Sometimes sometimes things change in the economy
Yeah.
and we're impacted.
Yeah, significantly. And this idea of, I just think of legacy, like even think about your work, right? That what I love about entrepreneurship is the potential for the legacy you can leave behind. and how you would want to be remembered if we're remembered, right? Um,
Yes.
how you would want to be remembered and the impact you want to have. Now, your work is deeply impactful. My work, um, I do it because I want to help people transform how they lead and how they live. I want them to live full, rich lives, rich meaning emotionally rich, spiritually rich, right? Mentally rich, um, not necessarily financially. I mean, you can do that too, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about the core of the soul,
Mhm.
right? And what
Mhm.
you take with you when you die is not your money, it's not the things you have, it's the memories, the love, the joy you experience in your life. And you may not remember all of it, but what you remember will be what matters most in that moment. And so that's why I'm always thinking about that. And I'm always thinking about legacy.
Yeah.
And so like how do I want to be remembered? And I'm wondering for you, does that come up in your work?
All the time.
Yeah, can you
All the time. It's really about choosing how you wish to be remembered because if you don't, someone else will, and you might not like the story that they say, but you didn't participate in writing it. So,
So this is why there's this. I don't know if it's recent, if it's because I wasn't paying attention before, or because it's happening more now. But I'm seeing more women, especially Black and Latina women, getting down their stories,
mhm,
creating books like the ones that you contributed to,
mhm, mhm.
creating books, collection of stories, collection of some kind of idea that everyone's going to contribute to share a story or a perspective. I've seen it in, there's this group called United Latinas that has, I think, 4 or 5 volumes now of a collection of stories by different Latinas talking about their stories and sharing lessons learned, advice.
I love that.
And I don't know if I'm seeing it more now and didn't notice it before, or didn't notice it before and it was happening, but I feel like since they're, especially in the United States, for those who are listening who aren't from the US, this movement of let me tell you about this community, but this community needs to share what that community is about
Mhm.
and owning our story and sharing our story. Because like you said, if we don't, we allow others to create the narrative and it's incorrect or
Yeah.
it's not entirely accurate.
And in either case, everyone has the right to be remembered. And you have the right for your story to be remembered in the way that you would tell it. But you have this right. You have to activate on that right. Like you have to
Yes.
do something about it. It's not something that is bestowed upon you. It is something
Mhm.
for you to take and to grab onto and to do with as you need and will. But there is, I would say, there is a mixture of an increase of self-narrativity, mostly through the more accessibility of technology through small and self-publishing opportunities. So now we can
Yes.
create large blogs. Now we can self-publish. We can there's small print platforms, ebook platforms. You can have your own website with your community, and then take all of the recordings of the women in your community and put them on this website, and a community archiving projects.
Mhm.
Because of the of where we are in technology, these things are more accessible now. I would also say, though, kind of looking at the long lead of history, people have in various ways told and captured and preserved their stories of their communities throughout history. We just might, in our Western context, in which the written word is the primary pathway of which we communicate or in which we transport information, it just might look different. It might look like recipes and cookbooks and weaving and quilting and actual oral histories and storytellings, memory workers, the memory keeper of a neighbor of communities. Sometimes it just look dance, movement, theater, music, song. Like sometimes that history just looks in a different format than we're used to in our modern Western context.
Mm. Yes, because we're looking for like a book.
You're looking for a book when the women of these communities have been using the exact same recipe for the
Mm.
past 400 years and
Mhm.
teaching it to their daughter in the same way, and
Mhm.
the same music, the same dance, the same way that there's just knowledges around how we take care of kids and how we speak our language. Like there's so much there. It just
Yes.
doesn't, it just, but we do have modern technology that allows us to write a lot more books. That part is
Hmm.
true.
Wait, so tell me more about we mentioned the books, the two books
Mhm.
in passing a bit. Tell us more about these books.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brave Women at Work, these are both Brave Women at Work, Lessons in Letting Go, and then In Relentless Pursuit of Me, Upending the Unicorn Effect. Both are women compilation books. So all of us are contributing authors in these books. And these women are just some of my like absolute favorite. They're just absolutely wonderful people and have incredible stories and have become friends and mentors of mine over the years. But the Brave Women at Work book, in that book, I really tried to tell the story a little bit about how I came into entrepreneurship. Um, I don't know about other people, but for me, it was more like a little bit of an up and then a down and then a little bit more up and then a crash and then a little bit more up. Like it was not that one
Yeah.
day I had this idea. I got a whole bunch of capital and left my job and struck out on my own. That is
Yeah. I
not
don't hear I don't know many people personally that was
right
their story, even though that's the story people tend to hear
here.
on like social media, right?
That was not my story. I kind of was like up and then down and then up and then down. And I really, I tried to use this opportunity to talk about the lies that I told myself
Mm.
as I was going through that season and how I was combating them or confronting them or being just like kicked in the butt by them, like,
Yeah.
and eventually what it was like to kind of have this little seed of an idea be planted, but have it be doubted, have it be by myself, have
Hmm.
it be questioned, have it be challenged, how it was like to leave a job, start my own thing, crash, have to go find it and go back into the traditional workforce, which is great. But no one ever talks about that time where you became an entrepreneur, it didn't work out, you have to go back to work,
Hmm.
you basically have to start over. And that was my journey. And so in Brave Women at Work, Lessons in Letting Go, wanted to talk about all the things about myself, the limiting beliefs, the lies, the self-critiques, the
What was the
doubt
biggest one, Dominic? What was the biggest lie you told yourself?
that I wasn't entrepreneurial.
Mm.
I'm not very entrepreneurial. That was the one. Um, I'm not very entrepreneurial. Well, I would say that was a big one. I didn't think I could do it in the first place. I had never really seen anyone that looked like me who came from Kentucky
Hmm.
do these bigger entrepreneurial Fortune 5. I've never seen that before. And so I didn't think I could do it. And I didn't think I had this, I just didn't have the skills. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what entrepreneurs did all day. Uh, you
No, I
don't
know, and now you know, and it's, I
know.
mean, it's again not for the faint of heart.
It is not for the faint of heart. I mean, now it's like, oh, you read contracts and you deal with legal and accounting and QuickBooks and
I hate QuickBooks.
can we just like,
No, by the way, QuickBooks, I use it. It
we
is,
do.
it is, I think it's probably one of the best platforms, but I decided I was going to, one of my first investments in terms of my expenses was an accountant who uses QuickBooks, because that QuickBooks is a big, is the standard. Love it. Okay, great. I just couldn't, I didn't like using it myself. I was like, this is not happening. And not my zone of genius either. Not my zone of genius.
But that's the thing, and that's something I actually talk about in the book is that nobody knows how to use QuickBooks.
It's like
First,
Adobe. It's like Adobe. It's like,
nobody. I was so worried. It seems silly now. Now it seems silly, but like I was so worried of like, well, I don't know how to read contracts. Who does?
you need to have a yeah, person. Yes, that's right. Or you learn it, or I mean, for the
Yeah,
contracts, I recommend an attorney. But
recommend an
yes,
attorney,
yes,
but it's like, oh, I can't go into entrepreneurship because I don't know how to. I don't know how to find vendors. I don't know how to do QuickBooks. I don't know how to do contracts. I don't. Nobody does.
that's right.
You skill stack slowly but surely, and at the end of the day, get a lawyer, right? Like it's not about oh, like you stack the skills and you know what you can handle. You know to do a little bit of marketing. you learn how to do ads or social media or build a website or whatever it is for you and your business.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows how to do those theoretically. No one knows how to do those things when they first start. You skill stack. And I thought I wasn't very entrepreneurial, but the reality was is that I just didn't have the skills yet. And that was exactly where I should have been because I wasn't an entrepreneur who had those skills. Like my fears made no sense.
Yeah, but they feel so real and they feel like factual, right? I mean, they feel so real in that moment. And sometimes it can feel like things are so far away from you. Like getting
Mhm.
better at this thing is far away from you. And even when people, I'm sure you've had this, Dominique, where you think of something that you do naturally and you've worked on it, but it also comes naturally to you. There's like a
Mhm.
synergy there between your natural strength and then the skill. Like it comes together and it's really strong. And I guarantee this has happened to you where someone's like, "Oh, I love this." And you're like, "Oh, that was oh, nothing." But but it but for someone else, they're like, "That's crazy, amazing."
Yeah.
But for you, it's something that you find, whether it's flow, whether it comes more easily to you because it's just a gift you have also.
Mhm. Absolutely. We all have these gifts or talents or skills. Can I also just say that sometimes hard work, I hate to, I mean,
Nope, nope. Say it. Let's go. Yes, hard work is a prerequisite. Okay.
focus, discipline, hard work, and
Yes.
yes, gifts and talents, and but most things at least can become to a level of I don't want to say accomplishment, but you can master a lot of things that by just hard work, skill, and just compounding those skills.
Yes, and being focused about it. Like, which are the skills I need to build, and how am I going to do that? How am I going to build that into my everyday? But also, Dominique, like just being honest, is the I I I do I don't subscribe to like hustle culture, this weird phrase that people have been talking about,
I
but I
do.
do believe in hustling and accelerating when you know you need to do that for a specific purpose for a finite period of time.
Mhm.
Like in your business, you're not going to push 5,000 miles per hour every day for 3 years, right? But you are going to push yourself during certain seasons of your business, and knowing that that's okay too, because you have to work hard with discipline and consistency.
Yes, it's not what you do intensely, it's what you do consistently, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
think consistency, and so if you make a change in your business and you're going to say I'm going to do this for 6 to 12 months, you really just have to stay consistent with it. It doesn't have
Yes.
to be this massive 1 to 10 change. It can be
Right.
incremental change over time as long as you do it consistently will net you some level of
Yes.
change. But also you're right. Like I am also not a hustle culture entrepreneur. It's just not my particular
Yeah.
lane for me. I think that we take things to extremes sometimes
Yes.
wherein
With
we
so many things right now, Dominic, like so like,
anything just
oh,
taken to an extreme. It doesn't have to be sometimes we do too much. We do
yeah.
too much. If you sat down,
Yeah. Yeah.
it would go a little bit better. But something being I have to find the sensitive way to say these things. Something being hard doesn't mean that it's impossible, and something being hard, sometimes you have to just remember that hard is based on your current level of a particular thing. So if you work out and maybe those 35, 40-pound dumbbells or the bar is really hard and you're like, I'm gonna die. Like, oh my gosh, this is way too heavy. But if you went to the gym and kept at it for 6 to 12 months, I bet that 45-pound
Yeah.
dumbbell isn't going to be as hard in a
Yes.
year if you went to the gym and kept practicing with it.
Yes.
I don't know if practicing with it
Yes.
is the right word, but
No, you're right. You're right. Like a push up is, if you've never done one, it's hard. You probably can't do one your first time correctly with the correct form. And then you look back 18 months later and you're like, oh my God, I couldn't do a push up, but now I can do 20 in a row. And it may take even longer than that, than 18 months to do them really with the correct form. But that's from doing it for that long.
that's
And
just it.
yeah, it's,
It
yeah,
is.
it's not
And
gonna,
it,
Sense.
it kind of goes back to what you were saying about the gift, and somebody see you saying, "Hey, I did this thing," and someone goes, "Oh wow, I could have never." Like, there are gifts and talents, and I fully understand and support and subscribe to the idea that some of us have blessings and gifts and talents, and absolutely 100%. Just because it isn't your particular gift doesn't mean that you give up.
That's right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you just say, "Oh, well, I'm just not good at that. Oh, well, oh, well, you have a particular so for example, I love spreadsheets. Don't know why.
Oh, Dominic, what? See, I'm like, oh no. I work with this, I work with a strategist on my business, speaking of support. And I've always worked with someone to help me with the business. Always. I've always had someone that is not related to me, not a friend, like just their business is helping people with their businesses, right?
Mhm.
And she loves spreadsheets and she loves charts. And
Love
and she showed me this chart once and I was like, this is a lot. And I said, but you know what? I understand why. And I could get this is because she's like, I love one pagers. I love a picture on one page. And I said, I need to learn how to love this a little bit more. Like I actually want to
Mhm,
because it's overwhelming at first. And
mhm,
so I immediately think I don't like this. But then as we work together more and more, I saw the value in having that and how it helped me. And I said, okay, I'm gonna be a chart girl. Spreadsheets, I still a stretch, but sometimes to express your gift and to exercise all of those strengths and gifts you have, you got to learn a skill that
mhm.
you may not want to learn, honestly,
Honestly, you
and
don't
learn it a little bit to express that thing or to be better at that thing that you want to do.
absolutely. I think that the, potential critical fault line of many businesses and entrepreneurs is when the entrepreneur doesn't know how to do the thing, or
Yes.
you've grown to a particular position where, um that's wonderful that you're able to bring on help. But now, if you don't know how your marketing is run, or you don't know how to do ads, and so you just gave up and you hired somebody in from the beginning, and now you still couldn't do it even if you wanted to because you never learned that skill. I think you
Hmm.
have to learn as the entrepreneur, especially in our smaller businesses, you have to be able to at least some level of degree do everything. You're
Hmm.
not supposed to be the expert in everything. You're supposed to be able to have some level of knowledge of every aspect of your business so that if that vendor falls through one day or if that employee leaves one day, you still know how to run sales.
Yes. And you also have to have basic information and knowledge because for you to know if they're doing what they need to do
Ah,
correctly, you
yes.
kind of have to know a
Yes.
little bit about that.
Yes.
So, I mean, even right
100%.
now, like I don't have an EA. I don't have an executive assistant. I've had people that have helped me like manage email. I've had people that help me do that. But an executive assistant who is like your right hand, who
Mhm,
protects your time, who
mhm,
I don't have that yet. And the reason why I haven't done it yet is because and maybe what I need as literally as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking to myself, but maybe you can create this with this person, is creating all of the processes and systems that I've built.
mhm,
Because for you to onboard, you can't expect someone to do something for you when you haven't showed them how to do it or how you want to do it. You
mhm.
just say, hey, go do this, and they give you something back. You're like, that's not what I wanted, but you didn't tell them what the template was. You didn't show it to them. So that's what as you're as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking right now, I need to go into my Google Drive and pull out all my processes and systems and say, okay, these are the ones that I have. This is what I can provide. These are the tools I can give this person so they can learn. So then they can start working with me. And then we partner together we
Mhm.
partner together. But this idea of, you know, you hiring someone and thinking that you don't have to know a little bit of what they're doing like you do to know that they're doing a great job, right?
I agree. I agree. I Enough said. 100% agree.
Wait, Dominic, so let's talk about the other book.
Oh yes, so Relentless Pursuit, in Relentless Pursuit, upending the unicorn effect. So the unicorn effect is a phenomenon coined by Dr. Renika Briscoe, who is the lead author on the book project, and she has really unpacked and understood this idea of women operating, particularly women of color and Black women operating to a certain level of degree of success, positive, successful outcomes with less support,
Mm-hmm.
with higher expectations, but
Yes.
less of their needs being met. They
Yes.
are expected to complete the project at work with no support. They're
Mhm.
expected to run the company while it's falling
Yep.
apart.
Yep.
There's this phenomenon, and then still be okay and still
Yep.
go home and
Yep.
also take care of your family and also
Mhm.
show up to the family reunion with a smile on and having made the mac and cheese, right? Like you
Yep.
still expect all these
Burning the candle at both ends.
at
Yep.
both ends and yet not complain, be okay, smile. Make sure, like, this phenomenon that I think many of us feel, but we not doesn't it's hard to describe, or it's just also expected to be the norm, which is also a
Yeah.
part of the phenomenon itself. Um, and so the entire book is the idea, or these various chapters of things that we've overcome, where we were had less but expected to do more. And I wrote the story about how I came into archival work. So the first book, Brave Women at Work, I specifically talked about how I became an entrepreneur. And by the time went into entrepreneurship, I had been an archivist for, I don't know, 5, 10 years by that point.
Mhm.
And this second book, In Relentless Pursuit, I talked about how I became an archivist at all, because I was actually a theater major in college. Yeah, I know.
I, I love that.
It's very different.
But no, no storytelling.
Yes, that's how as soon as I settled into my archival work, I recognized right away why it tied through.
Mhm.
But I think having a 4-year degree in lighting design, and compared to becoming an archivist, sometimes it doesn't always make a lot of sense.
Mm.
But for me, the storytelling component was always very clear. But I understand that it can look a little odd. And I remember at that time in my life going through some just substantial level of like challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge in my personal life. And finding that job at the library in the archive, which I thought was going to be at the reference desk, and I thought I would actually just be able to do my homework sitting at the desk, and I did not get to do those things. And so, to the person who filled out that description on the internet, like I still have words
Mhm.
because of how it was.
Mhm.
But it led me to where I am, and it was like the first solid step was that job in the library when I just needed a job because personally I had this roller coaster of just like things that I was battling and up against and trying to figure out. And I just needed a job. That if I could
Mhm.
just find a job and get some income, then everything else could we could move on to the next step. And so I talk about that season of my life and how I came into archival work, not necessarily to be an archivist, because I didn't know what that was. I'd never heard of the word before. Um, but I recognize it now as that first step. I don't know, 10 plus years ago. Um, it's a hopefully a impactful story.
But Dominic, I what I love about the story, part of what I love about it is that even in the past 6 months, more people have shared, especially CEOs of major Fortune 500 companies have shared how they came out of college and they went to, whatever school you go to, whatever school you went to, even if you went to, these premier Ivy League schools, how you sometimes you graduate and you don't have a job.
Mhm,
And how across the board these folks are saying, I just needed a job. And many of them went to work in retail because they're like, I actually love those clothes. And so I went to work in retail because, again, I needed a job. And then how that job opened up opportunities. And now they're doing what they're doing. And
mhm,
that's why I always tell people, especially in college or even people who are 30s and their 40s, like, get get out of this. I need to look a certain way. I need to be a certain way. I need to be certain kind of impressive to like get out of that's a mindset shift you have to make.
mhm,
You have to think about what is the next right step for me. If I need to go work retail, I'm going to go do that. I've had friends who leave their jobs, become entrepreneurs, and they say, you know what? I want some more steady income. So I'm going to work at a bookstore. I'm going to go work at a place that gives me meaning.
mhm,
There's
mhm.
nothing wrong with that. And why do we care so much what people think of our journeys and our lives that we have to live? No one else has to live them but us.
Sometimes I think that we compare our real story to other people's highlights reel.
Amen. Amen.
It is a blip in the story that is curated because history is a curated phenomenon of what
Talking
somebody
about
else said.
talking about that on social media, on
Yeah.
us, like, I mean, it's true. You scroll, you scroll, you scroll. If you do that, please don't. I don't recommend that. But if you do that, you're seeing these images of people and their perfectly curated lives.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they post challenges,
Mm-hmm.
it's very curated, oftentimes.
Even when I think there's also a place where a level of storytelling is actually filtration is a part of storytelling. So what do I mean by that?
Mm,
Anybody from high school to college, maybe even in middle school, they do this. You have an idea, you have to write a paper, you have to write an essay, maybe it's a thesis, whatever. And you say, "Hey, I want to write about this whole thing." And the teacher says, "Okay, that's wonderful. Let's write about um the rise and fall of fashion in the 20s. I don't, you pick a thing. Okay,
mm-hmm,
fine. I love that for you, whatever you're interested in. But filtration is a part of good storytelling,
mm-hmm,
meaning you're not going to write about all of fashion in the 1920s. You're going to write about the rise of New York Fashion Week specifically, and
mm-hmm.
who were the key players in New York, and how was that working because we were what was happening in the 20s. You have to keep filtering down. You have to
Yeah.
really keep filtering down. And what social media doesn't do is filter things down. What
Mm-hmm.
happens is that you see someone's perfect holiday wreath decor, and then you scroll and then you see a puppy photo dancing, and then you scroll and then you see a political ad, and then you scroll and then you see like a war somewhere, and then you scroll and then you go back to a dancing challenge video of the latest TikTok trend. It
Mm-hmm.
does too many things to our brain, and it causes too much the brain doesn't actually multitask. It just switches very, very quickly. So when we're
Yeah.
scrolling, we're way overstimulating the brain.
Yes.
I struggle, except for, this is me. I'm only talking to me. This is only about me, or not about me, but I'm only referring to myself about this. I struggle in my business more when I'm on social media more.
I yes. The
Only me. Just say.
No, no, I hear that. I am I try to be really intentional with social media. When I say that, I say intentional, I mean I I'll be honest. I only use Instagram because I have a business. If I didn't have a business, I wouldn't be on there.
Mm-hmm.
I simply don't wouldn't be on there. What I do when I go on there is if I have someone who helps me with social media. Like they'll post for me or create a post for me. And I'll do that. But I'll share a story. Like if I have something that happened, I'll share a story. Like, click on your stories, you share a story. What I tend to do when I'm on there is I go to my messages and people have sent me, AKA my sister or my two really good friends or like other friends sending me reels or memes that are hilarious that I watch.
Yes.
And every single thing they send me, 90% of it is funny. It's not deep, it's just funny.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go on there and sometimes I cry laughing at the stuff people send me.
Yes.
Because when I scroll, it's not helpful to me. It like you said, I get overstimulated and then it's just too much for me. And so, but when I go on and I'm looking at the people, like people that I know very well, sending me funny things, I'm like, this is worth a laugh for the next 15, 10 minutes, right? And setting a timer is ideal.
Always ideal.
But I find that people use and this is true in my work, I see it all the time, where people will use social media as a distraction for what they don't want to do in that moment. They're like, oh God, this okay, I'm just gonna go on. Oh ha ha ha, oh the puppies, oh the lion who slapped the other lioness. Da, da, da. Like they're
Yeah.
looking at
Yep.
this as it's coping mechanism,
It is.
distraction. Yeah.
It is. And I don't think it's a coincidence that despite what most people think, a lot of us as entrepreneurs, particularly a lot of high net worth or high follow count social
Hmm.
media influencers, they have a team
Oh, a whole
that
team. It's massive.
they might actually have multiple, as you're saying, they may actually have multiple people
They
on
do.
teams that help them build and create social media content. They themselves are not always just sitting there scrolling. They have teams around them. So you are spending your time scrolling,
Mm-hmm.
But the people that
They're
you're
not.
watching are not.
If you are listening, if you think for 1 second that people like Viola Davis, Taylor Swift, whoever you you listen to, I don't know who you listen to. If you think they are on social media themselves, they employ so many people to do that for them. And they've talked about it before.
Oh, yeah.
How
Okay. Okay.
they've talked about it. People a lot of celebrities, actors, even business owners will say, I mean, I rarely will post on there. If I post on there, I've given it to someone on my team to post for me. Say, hey, I think we should post it and use this caption that I've written. But this idea that people don't have these teams of people who are managing all those inputs and outputs is
Mhm.
just not right. Like even a podcast, people ask me all the time, why don't you do your podcast in person? And I said, for this one reason, when you do your podcast in person, it better be done right. And if you want it done right, you need a crew. You need cameramen or women or people. You need lights. You need a studio. And that's what you need. And to do that, you need to invest a lot of money in that.
Mhm.
And I'm not at the point where I want or need to do that. But if I want to do it right, that's what's gonna it requires. Like podcasts like the Mel Robbins show, Rich
Yeah.
Roll,
Oh my
Famous
gosh. Yeah.
CEO. Those are crews of people who
Yeah.
not only do the setup, Dominic, they do the research. They
They
get
do.
they do all the research and
They
then the
do.
person preps, but is prepping on the research already done.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so we forget all the people in the background that make this kind of magic or these things happen. And then we as entrepreneurs think, I should be able to do it just like they do. You don't have 40 people.
You don't have 15 years of broadcast experience before they became a podcaster either.
Yep. Yep.
Or
Yep.
maybe
Correct.
it
Yep.
goes back to that thing we were just saying is like,
Yep.
oh, I can't start until I do this, or I need to look a certain way. You are basing your ability to start based on someone else's crew of 30 people.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot put that kind of pressure on yourself. And I would encourage anybody to start where you are, work with what you have because everything is figure outable.
Yes. Yes. Oh, Marie Forleo.
Hmm. Everything is figure outable.
So for those of you who don't know, Marie Forleo, who I think is one of the most grounded entrepreneurs on who has an online business, who is the most grounded, I think, of entrepreneurs. Her name is Marie Forleo, and she wrote this book called Everything is Figure Outable. And it is a lot of it is about shifting mindset, limiting beliefs, what you believe is possible for you. And she also has, Dominic, I don't know if you know this, but or if you experience this, but she was one of the first people I knew in the personal development space and bit and
Oh,
in
okay.
entrepreneurship space. The first person I was exposed to. I don't remember how, but I remember being exposed to her. And because I took her, she has this course called B School, which is business school, but B School for
Okay.
entrepreneurs, for small business owners. I took that class. And because I took that course, it's like at that time, it was 6 to 8 week program that you took live. And once you take it, you have lifetime access to all of the material. But I took that course, and that's the course that made me say, I'm going to incorporate my business. I'm going to start. And I learned the first thing about marketing I learned was through her. The first thing I learned about how do you talk to people? What do you have to be thinking about when you start a business? Like, what is a business? Was
Right.
her. And
Wow.
so then I followed her, and then she came out with this book, Everything is Forgettable, like years later. But I always found her to be very grounded. She says all the time she doesn't like social media. She doesn't post on social media. Like that's not her thing. Her team does it, and her team makes fun of her because they say to her, "You are like the anti-influencer of influencers," because she does not like it, and she said it doesn't make her feel good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, someone who has almost 1 million followers, who is like, I don't enjoy it. And so I decided I'm not going to do it for myself. My team does it because they understand it's part of the business. But
Mhm.
I personally don't find it helpful to me. And so if she can do it, I mean,
I think
we just got to be intentional. We just got to be intentional about it.
there's so many individuals I can imagine that we all look up to, all these business, as we've said a million times by now, that they are not actually on social media because you're often running your business.
You're doing the stuff. Oh,
Yeah.
that only you can do. That really is your zone of
It is
genius. Yeah.
and having that CEO mindset means that you kind of have to keep taking that higher and higher viewpoint You have to start at that 10,000-foot view because you have to do all the things, right? But as you grow, like you have to focus on doing the things that only you can do and then be able to delegate, meaning know exactly how it's done so that you can instruct someone else how to do it. But then
Yes.
delegate those tasks as they come further and further down so that only if you are the only one who can sign who has signatory authority in your business for contracts, for vendors, for legal things. If you are the only person in your business that can sign contracts, then you had better spend your time reading contracts.
Yes. Yes.
Things like that.
Yeah. Simple and effective and intentional.
And
Yes.
intentional. Because we are not out here. No, we are not out here spending 14-hour days hustling.
No.
We believe in sleep and water.
Sleep, water, move your body, however
Move
that
your body.
move your body, yes.
Yeah.
And take care of your spirit and
Yes.
feel good in what you're doing and know that just because I always say when I have this I do a lot of keynote speeches and when I have a big chunk of them, I'm so exhausted after that run, but it's the best kind of exhaustion to me because I'm living my purpose, right? Like I'm doing something I love. And it's like a good kind of tired, right?
Mm.
But when I hit that point, I rest for a while. Like I'm not messing around with that.
It's it's flow and it's balance. I think any entrepreneur that thinks that in the first year that they're gonna be out in the Maldives, I want that for you. I love that for you. If that's really what happened in your business and it blew up overnight and changed your financial lifestyle overnight, I
Amazing.
love that for you. Teach me how to do it. But for a lot of us, you're gonna grind that first year or two.
Yes.
But then you have to learn how to scale it down and not scale the business down, but you have to scale that energy output down and rest because burnout helps no one.
Yes. And it impacts entrepreneurs, I think, just as much as people who are in corporate or in jobs that are where they feel like that's the culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dominic, okay. So this has been such a great conversation. I've loved talking to you about such a range of things. That is really fun. I love that. I love how we could go to different places. Tell everyone where they can find you, connect with you, and how they can get your books.
Absolutely. So you can find me at Miss Dominique Luster on Instagram. Though admittedly, I'm actually not on there that often, but you can find me there. And then you can follow the work at the Luster Company everywhere. So that's our website, thelustercompany.com, where you can also find the books. You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We are pretty much everywhere at the Luster Company, just the Luster Company, or at thelustercompany.com. Brave Women at Work, Lessons in Letting Go, as well as Relentless Pursuit of Me are both available on Amazon, on my website, Instagram. Hope Street Press is our publisher, so you can find it there as well. We're a little bit everywhere.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you.